It's my honor to introduce to you Sister Norma Pimental. Sister Norma is a sister with the Missionaries of Jesus. As Executive Director of Catholic Charities for the past 10 years, she's overseen the charitable arm of the Diocese of Brownsville. Sister Norma received her bachelor's degree in fine arts from Pan American University, a master's degree in theology from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, and a master's degree in counseling psychology from Loyola University in Chicago. She was instrumental in organizing community resources to respond to the surge of Central Americans seeking asylum in the U.S. 2 years ago and setting up humanitarian respite centers in McAllen and Brownsville. These efforts brought Sister Norma recognition as a recipient of the 2015 Martin Luther King Jr. Keep the Dream Alive Award from Catholic Charities USA and a nomination for Texan of the Year. Last March, she spoke at the United Nations headquarters in New York at the invitation of the Permanent Observer of the Holy See to the United Nations. And during the papal visit last year to the United States, Sister Norma met with Pope Francis in New York and presented him, I think ideally, with one of her original paintings, which depicted an immigrant mother and child. Please help me in welcoming Sister Norma Pimental. Sister, I had a line of all these questions prepared for you, and then you told me about a phone call this morning on the way here. Please describe that phone call.
Wow. Well, I received a call from Father Amador. He right now is in Rome with the Holy Father. And he says, Norma, I have to tell you something. I just met with the Holy Father, and I told him, te manda saludos, Sister Norma de McAllen. And you should have seen his face. His face lighted up. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to turn on the mic. So sorry. There you go, there. I'm all wired up. There you go. Okay, so sorry. But anyway, he said, le hubieras visto la cara. Se le brilló de alegría y de gozo. Dije, ay, Amador, this is the best news I've ever heard. You know, you made my day. Thank you. Thank you.
So someone who can make the Pope light up. It's amazing. Once again, the Border Patrol has been reporting an upswing in the number of Central Americans crossing into the United States in this area. Are you seeing the same thing at your respite center in Sacred Heart?
Yes, we are. We definitely are seeing so many people coming every day. Yes.
And what do you do when you see this huge surge of immigrants come through? Is it all hands on deck? How does that work?
Well, what we have done since day one, when we started last year in June of 2014, was welcome them, offer them our hearts, and give them the opportunity to be. They matter to us. They matter to not me, for us here in McAllen in the Valley. They truly matter because they're people, and we wanted to make sure that they were welcome and they would care for the way any person deserves to be cared for.
Now, I want to get into how they react a little bit more, but I do admire your tactical skills. You're like a field general in many respects, and so I'm wondering how that works. Does the Border Patrol alert you that we've got a large group coming in, or how does that work?
Well, you know, at first when we started, we didn't know who was coming and how many people were coming, and so we were able to try to figure out what to do to respond to the persons that were needing, that were coming to our center. But thanks to the help of the city of McAllen and working together with them, we were able to sit down at the table with the Border Patrol as well and really help get their help in determining how many people are coming every single day. So every single time before they arrive, we get a call, we get a text message that tells us 20 people are coming, 60 people are coming, and so this is how we can better prepared to who we are going to receive that day. That's not very accurate, but at least we do have an idea how many people are, or a general idea how many people might come.
So you get an alert, and then what do you do? How do you alert the community? How do you alert volunteers?
Well, for one, volunteers are very committed in coming. And then, of course, we have Eli Fernandez, who right now is overseeing the center right now. And he will text everybody that has come up and helped and would like to come and help us out. And sure enough, they show up, like Silvia Cardenas and Alma Reves and many others are right away, leave whatever they're doing, and they come and they help us.
And does the community respond? I mean, do you ever put out alerts or calls to the community saying, we need your help? How does that happen?
Well, it's all by, like the very first day that we started. I was on my way to the bus station and I knew we needed to do something. And so what I did was I was driving there and I called somebody that I know very personally, and I called Esperanza Gelman, and I said, Esperanza, meet me at Sacred Heart. And so she said, what for, sister? I don't know, but we'll figure it out when we get there. And call your friends. And she called all her friends, and they called all their friends. And before you know it, we had all of Sacred Heart filled with a lot of people there helping us out.
Wow. So take us back to that beginning, that summer in 2014, when you all first noticed something was happening. How was that brought to your attention?
Well, you know, the community was already trying to do something. There were families in the bus station being dropped off by Border Patrol, and they obviously were needing a lot of help. They were in a state of great need. They had gone through so much along their journeys as they left their countries, and they arrived to the bus station in great need of help. And so families were going and dropping off things at the bus station, but it was not the best thing that you could imagine, and people, there was something else needed to happen. And so I received a call, and they said, help us out. We need to organize something, and we don't know how to do this. So I went immediately to the bus station, and in the way, I called Father Tom, because Father Tom, the closest thing that was to the bus station was Sacred Heart. So I thought, Father Tom, let me borrow your parish hall for a couple of days. I laugh, and he laughs too, because the fact is, we're there way over a year and a half already, and we're still there, and so a couple of days passed, and I asked him, Father, I did ask for a couple of days, so I can understand if I need to move all of this, to somewhere else. and so he said, sister, you stay here. As long as you need to be here, you stay here. And the parish supported that. It was amazing, the response, not only of him, but of the whole parish. Because who gives away their parish hall with all the activities that they have, And they made a big sacrifice to allow us to stay there. So what was happening in Sacred Heart was something that, who gives the parish, like when I called him and he said, yes, go and get the key and it's yours. I believe that it was God who had me respond and had Father respond and the whole parish and all the volunteers and everybody so openly. He touched all of us and said, this is something I need you to do. And so the stars were aligned, And of course the city of McAllen coming in the very first day and asking me, Kevin, and said, sister, what are you doing here? Because we had a whole parish hall full of people and volunteers, and I said, está pasando, And I said, I looked around and I said, we're restoring human dignity. Yeah? That response, I don't know. I know Kevin now, and he's an extraordinary person of faith. And he turned around and said, sister, if I had a magic wand, what would that little magic wand do for you? I said, really? And I said, how about some showers? Because the people were coming, and all we had was wipes, and we weren't able to give them anything else. So I said, how about some showers? And that night we had 8 portable showers. That was thanks to the city of McAllen. And from then on, the city was there by our side, working together, as was the county and many others, And so we were able to together do what we did here in McAllen, Thank God.
Now, Sister, it's my understanding that this is a situation with which you had some familiarity, that you were exposed to something similar, I think, back in the late 80s when a number of civil wars were breaking out in Latin American countries. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and how it prepared you for this?
Well, being here at the border, of course, we're right at the border. We always see immigrants coming to the South Texas. And so back in the 80s, when I had just entered the convent, we were seeing a lot of people coming from Nicaragua and Salvador. That was great numbers of them. And so our bishop then, the time Bishop Fitzpatrick, had a house for a shelter for the refugees. And so he asked us, the Missionaries of Jesus, if we would help him oversee this house, because it was very controversial, and we wanted to make sure we didn't become political in all of this, but rather just offer that humanitarian care that every person deserves. And so Sister Juliana and myself were overseeing that house, and we were there for 10 years.
Wow.
Yes.
And what lessons did you derive from that experience that you applied here?
Well, for one is that it is important to be present to the lives of these people that are here in our own backyard and that need our help, And so there are people who are victims of the violence and the things that are happening in their country. And so when they're here, what we did, we were just 2 sisters, and yet we were overseeing a shelter that was helping thousands of refugees. And I remember one time volunteers would come and ask us, because they would help us, that we would train and help the refugees to help us coordinate and run the shelter. And they were all so competent and capable. We had the kitchen area, the dormitories, every single area. It was like a little city within the city, in how we operated and ran the center. And I remember a group once comes and tells us, how is it that you do it? You're just 2 women running this place. How can you handle the whole thing? Well, I said, how can you handle the job of 12 men? I said, well, it takes 2 women to do the job of 12 men.
So, the city of McAllen came to you with open arms. The county came and provided services. Tell me about the federal government's response and reaction to you all. Was there any skepticism, or were they equally accommodating in the early days of your setting up this operation?
When you refer to the federal government, who are you talking about?
Border Patrol, Homeland Security.
I believe they were as receptive as well. Right from the chief, Kevin Oates, right from the start, he met me and he welcomed me and invited me to join him, and trying to figure out what it is that we needed and how could we best respond to what we were facing. I think that he had a very difficult task upon himself. The Border Patrol was not prepared or did not expect such an overwhelming number of people to arrive, and they were overwhelmed with the number of children that they had in those small facilities, and not being able to release them because they were children and unaccompanied. And so it made it very difficult for them to handle that. And they didn't give him another option to release these children, because his children need to be taken care in a different way when they are not with their parents. And so I know it was not easy for him. And I think he was very helpful with us to try to respond the best way we could. I think he was happy that we were able to take care of the families that he was not able to take care of.
Can you explain the process of how the Border Patrol would handle these immigrants and how they would come at your front door?
Well, you know, it was very, the facility at the Border Patrol is very small, the processing, but it's not equipped to handle anybody other than just process them and move them forward to another location. And so when they couldn't do that, they were forced to have thousands of people in that 300 capacity facility. And that's a lot of children, and mostly children. That was what was so difficult to see when I was able to go by and visit, thanks to our county judge who gave me that arranged so that I could go. And when I was able to go in there and see the children and the conditions that they were in, it was sad to see them. There were so many of them, you know, and I couldn't believe that here in the United States, the most powerful nation in the world, could not have another option for these children, you know. They were all tight and full, and they were dirty and crying, and I asked to go in and see them inside and pray with them, and they gave me permission to do that, and I had all the children around me. They were all crying, asking me, "Sácame de aquí. No puedo respirar," you know, to hear those words, and I just felt like wanting to take all of them out of there, right? But we couldn't. And the officer in charge, as I walked out, he tells me, "Thank you, sister. You helped me realize this. They are human beings." They get so desensitized with so many of them coming, and so things started to change after that. And so I think that it took them a while because they were doing their best to get something better than that. But I think that we failed those children in many ways, us here in the United States, for not having another option for them, you know.
Now, to clarify, these children who came unaccompanied, federal law basically would not allow the agencies to release them. So they had to be held. It was the children who came with mothers in particular who came through your facilities. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that dynamic. You have mothers with children coming through your facility after a very harrowing journey. What typically was their reaction?
You know, after that visit that I made to those facilities of immigration, and I saw how much they were hurting, how they were crying and afraid and didn't know what to expect of their lives after being detained and there. When I realized how important was our role and our welcoming them when they arrived to Sacred Heart, you know. And so when we see the families walk through those doors of Sacred Heart and come in, and all our volunteers just join together in applauding and saying, "Bienvenidos, pásale, come on in," you know, you see the faces of those mothers just break into tears of joy, of happiness, of unbelief that we here in the United States are welcoming them and saying, "You matter to us, you are important, and we care about how you are." And just seeing them, it's almost as if that space there in Sacred Heart becomes holy ground, you know? Not only because these families, these people are coming with great faith, as soon as they walk in, they kneel down, many of them, and start to pray and give thanks to God for finally finding the presence of God in their lives after this long journey. And then the response of the volunteers, so many of them welcoming them and saying with their faces, with their bodies, how happy they are to be there and to help them. It's something beautiful happening between the volunteers and the immigrants, you know, together. It's so beautiful. And making sure they can immediately find a way to get cleaned up, take a shower, go to a doctor, or whatever it is that they needed. We were able to do that because we had so many doctors and nurses and everybody so willingly wanting to help and to do whatever was needed to make sure these families' dignity was restored.
Now, this notion of applauding them as they first enter the facility, was that spontaneous, or how did that come about?
Well, we had with us Catholic Charities USA, and a very beautiful person, and with us today is Father Larry Snyder, our past president of Catholic Charities USA, and he had a team of people within his staff from the national office that came right away to see how they could be of help to us. And with them was this lady called Kim Burgo. She has visited, and when she worked with CRS in those countries like Honduras, Guatemala, and he said, Sister Norma, when I was there in Central America, people greeted me with applauses to welcome me, and it felt so wonderful. I said, can we do this here? And I said, yes, let's do that. And so that's how we started to applaud and welcome, because that's the way they welcome us if we were in their own homeland. So,
now tell me about the mechanics of the process. A family is basically released by the Border Patrol. They enter your facilities. What do you do at that point?
Our only interest is to bring them from the bus station, and the city has helped us to bring them through shuttles or buses, city buses, or we walk them all the way to the station, to the Sacred Heart. And what we do is invite them to come if they would like for us to help them. And then once they're there, make sure that they get the help they need, where they just immediately help them take a shower, clean up, and then eat, call their families, get some provisions for their journey to go back, and then just take them back to the bus station. Just the basic needs that they may need.
Now, many of these people have spent weeks, if not months, on an extremely perilous journey. I'm sure their defenses were up the entire time, and I'm sure they learned to trust no one. How initially would they react to you and your organization? Were they distrusting initially?
The first reaction was distrust. The ladies that were trying to help them, they would not trust them. They said, Sister, you need to help us. You need to come so they can begin to trust us that we were trying to help them. So I went and I talked to the first groups, and I said, we're the church. We're here to help you. Can you let us help you? And so that's why we started to take them to Sacred Heart, and then we continue to do that every day. But it was not easy for them to trust, because so many people has hurt them. Even people at the bus station were praying and trying to hurt them as well. They were trying to see if they could get their phone number and call their families so they could wire the money to them or kidnap them and things like this. So it was very important right from day one that we identify ourselves and that we were church, that we were there to help. And so to be able to do that, we immediately put on a vest that everybody needed to wear. And that was, for me, a way to distinguish between who was helping and who was not. And so it would help them also see that we were there to help, and it was very clear that it was the church present for them to help them, And so everybody, no matter who it was, put on that vest. It didn't matter if they were Catholic, Presbyterian, Lutherans, Jewish, everybody put that vest, because that vest represented one church, one people, all of us together helping, and it was, the importance was to see that we were there to help and we cared about them, and that was important to see.
Now, were you able to discern by just physical body language or by their reaction at which point they kind of crossed the Rubicon, that they began to trust you, they began to understand that you're not there to harm them?
It happens immediately as soon as we arrive, and it's important that volunteers, and one of the things I tell volunteers and my staff there is we cannot forget how we offer to help. We can't just shuffle them and become just an efficient group of people trying to do a good job, because then we may fail to be respectful to the person and what we're trying to do, and so it is important how we approach them, with respect and also offering in goodwill that we're here to help, And so when they also see another group coming in that has just been helped, and they see how happy they come back from Sacred Heart, this group that's just arriving, scared, frightened, unsure of what to do, they can see that it's all good, And so something happens along the way,
Now, this is a component of human nature that I think we're all unfamiliar with, unless we actually witness it, but it's the notion that, okay, we've gained your trust. What is their typical reaction? Do they then begin to kind of tell you about their journey? Do they begin to unload on you, or what is the reaction?
Well, once they arrive to Sacred Heart, we immediately register them and type their names down and who they are and where they're going. And as we're doing that, we ask them, how are you? How was your journey? What happened to you along the way? And they will immediately start telling you about themselves and about what happened and why they came and how they feel and how scared they were and the horror stories of what they were faced with. That's when we start to see, and you see all our volunteers that are registering one person after another person, and they take the time to be caring in how they ask them for the information and how they listen to their stories. Herminia Versace, she has wonderful stories of how she heard the stories of these families, and so many like her, many volunteers, where we hear their stories and how they share that with us.
Now, the adults obviously are able to articulate the fears, the journey, the concerns. How do the children respond?
The children respond with great joy, because for the first time when they arrive to Sacred Heart, they become children again. They start to play. We have an area designated just for the children, and they play with toys and have fun, and some of them don't want to even leave that area anymore, and their parents are trying to say, let's go, and they say, no, I want to stay here. And just recently I had a dad with his little girl, and she was crying, and I went to see what's wrong, ¿qué te pasa? He says, because this little toy has little balls, and they look like gums, either red, purple, red, orange, and things like that. And she wants me to give her a piece of gum. And I keep telling her it's just a toy. And so she wanted gum. And so I saw that there was some gum at the front when I arrived. So I said, you want some gum? I'll give you some gum. And so I gave her a little a strip of gum. I said, are you sure she knows how to chew gum? She was very small. And she said, yes, she does. So sure enough, I give her that gum, and she became so happy, just chewing that gum away. And everywhere I would go, she would just show me that she was still chewing that gum. And then when I called her before she left, she comes and hugs me. And we became friends, just because of that little gum that I gave her. It was wonderful.
Now, there is a common thread among the stories of these immigrants. What is that common thread?
That they're victims of a society that is taking advantage of them. Their other stories are they are fleeing a situation in their country. Is just a lot of violence in their country with all those gangs. Those gangs have taken over their cities, and they can't live there. Even if we deport them back, there's either they will get killed or they will try to come back. One of the two. Their stories is that they're, for the most part, that what we've seen, the people that are released to us, they're not criminals. If they were, the Border Patrol would not release them. I think they're doing a very good job of catching the criminals, and making sure that's their job. And I think that they know how to distinguish between who is here who shouldn't be here and who is not a criminal. And these are victims, families that are fleeing an unjust society that is hurting them. And so that's the same story we hear all the time.
So if that thread is one of victimization, do you also see any thread of resilience?
Most certainly, yes. Oh, if there's anything that the women, the mothers bring, it's just in the mere fact that they come with their kids. And the majority of the families that we see is a mother and their child. Most of them are mothers. And it's amazing that the strength and the resilience of these women. They are willing to go through whatever it is. The very first couple of days that I was there in Sacred Heart, it was about 12 midnight, and I saw this very petite, tiny little Honduran mother. She was small and she was big. She was really ready to deliver. And so I said, híjole, when are you due? You know, like and she just said, yeah. I said, what do you mean, yeah? You know, like now, you know? And I said, wow, why would you put yourself through all of this? Why all the danger? And she said, how long have you been in the journey? It's about a month. And she was with a little girl about 3 years old. And she said, ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué te viniste? And she says, well, look. And she showed me her hand. And her hand was completely cut into half, all like this, crumbled. And you see somebody came into my house, and it was one of those pandilleros. And he struck my little girl with a machete. And I put my hand to save her. Mm. And that's why and then she had another cut over here. If I wouldn't be here, she would be dead. And so we fled from that because I'm afraid for her life. You know, those stories really mark what it is that is happening. The women will go out and do whatever it needs to do to go make sure that their child is safe, you know. They teach us a lot about that resilience and that women are strong, you know, and they are willing to face whatever to defend and protect their child, you know. It's amazing.
Now, these are stories that emanate from the countries that they've come from, but they're also victimized along the way. The journey that comes up here is not an easy journey. What kind of stories do you hear from the travel itself?
Well, you know, all the stories are the hardest thing that they go through is having to deal with the fact that the temperature or the weather or walking too much or not being able to eat. And this seems to be what everybody goes through. But they also have stories like, for example, we had a father who said when we were coming, and this happens to many of them as well, we were coming in the bus through Mexico, and they got us down. Somebody got us down, and then they stashed us out in this house and asked us if we need to give them money and call our families, and if we don't call our families, they will kill us. And so we had 2 young girls with us. I was protecting them along the way. When we got to that house, all those 2 young girls, which not more than 15 years old, maybe less, were pulled aside from the group and taken to another room, and we just heard them screaming and crying. And then after that, we never saw them again. But my child they got me and my little boy, and they put a gun to his head. And they said, you give us the money or I will shoot him. And they actually pulled the trigger. And I thank God that, I don't know what it was, you know, he was sharing this story to one of our volunteers, and she said, I don't know if it was because God was so mighty and he made this for my child to be alive, or maybe they were just playing with me to see that they were serious. But in any case, my family did send them some money, and we were able to get out of there. And so we're here. And he was crying all this time, sharing his story and saying how grateful he was that he was now here in McAllen and able to go forward.
Now, another thing we hear quite often is the use of rape as a weapon. How do these women adjust to that reality, and particularly after the fact?
You know, I don't know that anybody can adjust to that reality. You know, we had recently when our Holy Father was here through that via satellite.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay, and we had one of the mothers with her child that spoke to the Holy Father. Well, that was a very special case. That mother, when she was coming through Mexico, she was, they were going to take advantage of her and her little girl, and she said, please do not touch my little girl. You can do with me whatever you want, but don't touch her. And so they raped her, and she said, she was sharing with me this, and she said, and my daughter does not know what happened. But the little girl that spoke to the Holy Father, and she said, I know something happened to my mom, and she doesn't want to tell me, but I know because she cries a lot every day. You know. So to answer your question, I don't know that we can ever get over that, you know, what happens to a woman when that happens.
And you obviously play a very important role in listening to these stories. These people need to share with someone. How do you deal with that reality?
Well, you know, it's not just me, but everybody that's there, because we have beautiful people helping and listening to all these stories every single day. But I think that when we are there, we're there because God have us there, you know, and it is His presence that is present to them, you know. And so when we go, when I go home every night, and I have experienced listening to all the pain and suffering, and all the good that has happened at Sacred Heart, I go home with a sense of content that something good happened, and that we were able to make God present in this moment, and so I can go to bed and with really well, you know, knowing that this is happening.
So do you view this as a test of your faith, or is it something that restores your faith?
Well, I don't know about a test, but definitely restores my faith, makes my faith definitely stronger and more powerful. Mm.
Now, my understanding is that if you had your preferences, you'd rather spend all your time with these families as opposed to annoying reporters like me. But there's that role that you must play. It is, you in many respects have become the face and the advocate for these children. How have you adjusted to that role, the public role?
Interesting. Yes, well, I realize that by all the importance that has been given to what has happened, and I myself becoming that face that represents all of us, because I really represent everybody that has been together with me responding. And so I think that it helps me to realize that it's good that we're doing something that is people are noticing that, and we're helping the world be a better place. And so I'm very pleased and happy for that, you know.
Now, about a year ago, you were invited to go speak before the United Nations. Mm-hmm. What message did you convey? What significance did you feel that you needed to teach in this address? Well,
for one, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that here in the United States there was something good happening, and that many women that were present with me and helping and making sure that I named them and when I was speaking, so that it is our response to help those that are in need, and the resilience of the women that are coming and coming in this journey is making us the world aware that it is our responsibility to do something about this, and we are doing it here at McAllen, Texas.
And there's obviously an opposite response that exists not only in this country, but Europe is now grappling with that same response. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with the notion of the attitude that these people are just lawbreakers who are invading our country?
Well, because I think that they aren't aware, those people that are against or thinking that they're lawbreakers, they haven't met them. They haven't seen that face and that child and that mother, and they haven't seen them in what we see. If you see, you will then turn around and do something. It's a given, I think. We will always respond with an act of care if we see somebody falling and needing our help. And so those that don't, it's almost as if those people that are against it, is they put themselves in this bubble, and protect themselves from seeing or wanting to go beyond what they're comfortable, what they've set as their standards in life. And so if they get out of that bubble and actually allow themselves to see, they will help. Every single person that came to Sacred Heart, and there were thousands of people, even the media and doctors and lawyers and anyone, if they actually go and see and they will help. It comes out of them to help. People from all over the United States have thanked me for giving them the opportunity to be there and to help. People that were no longer going to church this young man from DC thanks me. I came back to the church because of you, sister. No, it wasn't me, but thank God that you did come back, But I think that it is in us to help others, because that's what God gave us, that responsibility to help one another and help all. And so I think that we will all do what I've done and what so many have done. We will all do if they only see, and it definitely would be, the response would be very different.
Now, you grew up in the Valley, correct?
I am from the Valley, yes.
What lessons were instilled in you as you grew up that you're applying now in terms of this compassion that you're showing?
Well, my family, my dad and my mother have been good people, working people, and people that always did what was right, But I think that more than my family is how God has led me to be who I am today. And a lot of who I am today has a lot to do when I chose, where God led me to become a religious. And I met Sister Juliana Garcia, who is an extraordinary woman in my life. She was my mentor, and I don't know anyone more had a very clear vision of church and of Jesus in her life, that she passed that on to me. She wanted to make sure that I grabbed onto that, and so I thank her for that.
Now, another component of our culture and a component of our faith is humility. And you are the personification of that attribute. But you're also a rock star.
Well, my bishop
how do you
tells
resolve?
me that.
How do you resolve that conflict?
Well, always reminding myself and getting my feet on the ground as much as I can. Put weights in my because I don't want to lose touch of that. We have to definitely be always connected to reality, and reality is that we are just doing God's work. I remember Mother Teresa of Calcutta once said, I'm just that pencil in God's hand. Well, I'm that little brush in his hand because I am an artist. So yes, we're all his hands and his feet. And really, I'm amazed sometimes when I say something, I say, did I just say that? It's him that's working in us.
You must have needed a lot of rocks when Pope Francis called you out in a closed-circuit television hearing at Sacred Heart. Tell us about that moment.
Well, it's hard to have any words for that. I thought I was ready to talk to the Holy Father and make sure I had so many things. That night before, I said, if I had a chance to talk to the Holy Father, this is what I'm going to say. I really thought about it all night. And then I was told that I was not going to be able to talk to him because it was only the families and the children that he wanted to talk to. So I said, okay. But what happened was something so unexpected. I didn't know he was going to do that. And when he actually called me out, and I couldn't believe that he knew me and he knew what we were doing here in McAllen. He actually knew us, And so that was so maravilloso, It was beyond words. And so well, what else can I say?
What does that say about the region? You know, you say he knew about me, he knew about what was going on in McAllen. This is a region that is constantly fighting negative perceptions. What is this doing for the perception of this region?
Well, that they're wrong, you know. There's a lot of good here in the valley, and it's evident by what has happened in Sacred Heart.
Now, you did have an opportunity to meet again with the Pope in person when he came to the United States. What was that meeting like?
Well, it was short, but it was wonderful. It was the opportunity to actually, the very first time, have an opportunity to actually hug him, and of course give him the painting that I painted for him, and ask for his blessing. And so I felt just as wonderful as when I was here, when we saw him in Sacred Heart. He was great, you know. I look back I just saw the pictures, because you can go online and look at the pictures that were taken when I had with him. And it just brought back, you know, his face. Every time he's looking at me and he's hugging me and he's blessing me, that face of joy and is reflected in him at every moment, you know, and it's beautiful. You know, it's great. I can't wait to print those pictures.
Now, I would imagine you gave a lot of thought to the gift that you gave him, the painting that you drew. Why that painting? Why that topic? Why that subject?
Well, because it's the mother and a child, but if you look at the painting and look at the eyes of the mother, especially of the child, it depicts the pain. You know, I don't know if when we are sometimes working very hard, we spend a day very tired walking and whatever we're doing, and when we sit down, our feet start to hurt. It's not until then that we feel our feet hurting, you know, our body aching. Well, that family, when I took that picture at Sacred Heart one evening when they arrived, they were sitting there with this look in their face, almost as if you could capture by their expression what they had just been through, all the pain they had just went, a disbelief of where they were now, you know. It's just looking back and seeing, and you can capture that in that expression of the child and of the mother. And so that's why I painted that. And I wanted the Holy Father to have it because it was a way to have him, when he prays for immigrants and refugees, as I'm sure he does, he could have a picture of that presence of that immigrant before him when he does that. And that's what I wanted to do.
I'm wondering if there's another layer to that. You talk about the depiction of pain in that painting that represents the family's pain. Is there some pain that represents your pain in that painting as well?
You know, I haven't thought about that, you know, but the pain that I felt the most in all this was that moment when I was before the children in that detention facility, and the hurt of not being able to do enough for them. And so I think that I would say yes, that captures that pain of how limited we are in what we can do to heal the brokenness of these families and these lives.
But even though we have these limitations, people continue to try. I'm struck as I go through your facility by that map of the country. Tell us about that map and what it represents.
The map in
the respite center with all the names and.
Well, we have a wall of all the different states. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we have every single state that has ever come, or even country has ever come to Sacred Heart. They feel so proud to put a piece of paper, say Illinois, Minnesota, Washington, D.C. The whole wall is full of different, and this was not the very beginning, but as we have gone on, every single group that comes, and we just recently had a group of students from Harvard, you know, there, and of course, and also some students from St. Thomas of Minnesota was there just this week, and every single group wants to leave a mark. I was here, you know, and it represents all of us, you know, that we unite in this response that our Holy Father and God is asking us to open our hearts and welcome, and to make sure that everybody is treated right. I think that's what that I see, that wall, that map of so many people, how we come together as one people to say yes to life.
And that obviously contrasts with the people that represent evil, that have driven these people into your arms. Do you see one side or the other emerging victorious in this?
Oh, well, I certainly hope that we are victorious. Yes, I think we should not give up. I think that there's a lot of evil in the world, a lot of ugly things happening, and the way we can counterattack that, is by creating a revolution of tenderness, which is what our Holy Father this year is calling us to have, a year of mercy. And how we can do is reminding ourselves always to be good, to be caring with our families, with our co-workers, with anyone we run into when we drive in the expressway, because sometimes it's really crazy. It's really bad, And so reminding us that we have to revolutionize this valley and make it a revolution of tenderness.
You spoke earlier about the alignment of planets as you set out on this mission. Part of the alignment is the Holy Father himself, the notion that he is preaching mercy over looking at rules and enforcing the rules. Do you think that's coincidence?
Of course not. There's no coincidence in life, It all happens for a reason, and it's God's plan. And so I think our Holy Father is very instrumental for God to make sure this world comes to be what we need to be. He's a good leader in our spiritual life and our world. And so no coincidence.
What do you think his message will be when he travels to Mexico next month?
Well, I think his presence is going to be very important, because Mexico is going through a very difficult time. And so Mexico is a country of great faith. And so I think that people will need that presence of our Holy Father to bring on that courage that we need to continue to not give up, to have hope that things can get better. And we need to fight for that. We need to be strong and work for a better life, And I think his presence is coming to the border as well, And he will be in Juarez and El Paso. So I'll have the opportunity to be there myself, because our Bishop Sites invited me to join him in the U.S. side. So I'll be right at the levee when the Holy Father celebrates Mass. And so it will be really important, that moment of celebrating Mass right at the border with two countries united in prayer.
It's been about 18 months since you opened the respite facility. I'd like you to first address the evolution of the facility itself, and then address the evolution of your own personal faith over those past 18 months.
Well, the center, as it has come since day one, if you had walked the very first day, it almost felt like chaos, We have so many immigrants at one time, donations just coming from day one, just being poured in from everywhere and everybody, and piles and mountains of things, for Pampers, milk, everything, water, amazing how the generosity of so many people just coming and bringing things to make sure we had everything we needed, restaurants, everybody. And as we move forward, things are so organized. If you go walk in today, you see everything almost as if it's like Penny's or one of those stores, all organized and really very nicely set, which is wonderful, And so my goal, I remember the very first couple of days that we were there, and families would come in and start picking their clothing. Where you go to a department store and everything's on sale, you start going like this. And so we had organized everything, folded it up, and then they left, everything was on the floor, So I said, this is not going to work for us. So because we're working too much. So I said, from now on, every single family will have a sponsor. And so all volunteers will go ahead, and as soon as they get registered, make sure that the volunteer will become a sponsor and walk the family around, giving the family what the family needed, and so solutions, it stayed organized and beautiful every single day after that.
What about your personal evolution?
My personal evolution, well, every day is a new day and a better day to do what I need to do, and God giving me the opportunity to do things a little better, and so I think that I believe that what all this attention and recognition and help for the immigrants is something wonderful for the cause, to making sure that bring awareness to the need of making sure that we're a people that cares, and we want to make sure that we transmit that and get everybody to do the same. And so my evolution is I thank God for the opportunity to one more day to do what He would like for me to do in my life.
Excellent. Typically at this moment, we take questions from the audience, but I wanted to invite my boss, Stephen Wingard, up here to make a special presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was approached by the editors at our various newspapers up and down the valley this year, and that's the Valley Morning Star, the Brownsville Herald, of course the Monitor, El Extra, El Nuevo Heraldo, the Mid-Valley Town Crier, Coastal Current. We have a lot, huh? These guys said that they wanted to recognize someone in the valley going forward once a year, somebody who was representative of the values that of the RGV, and we called it RGV Citizen of the Year. And we had a whole lot of folks nominated. Some of them in the room. David Guerra was nominated. Some stiff competition.
Thank you.
Sorry, David.
I enjoyed this process, and I got on the telephone call where all these editors were going to decide, right? And I thought to myself, I'm never going to agree on one person, all these editors. And it was a fairly short phone call. Across the valley, they got on, and in pretty short order, the choice was clear, Sister Norma. So we have something for you. We have a plaque. I'm going to open it up, if you don't mind. We recognized in all of our products our winner. Even our political cartoonist got involved. So I'd like to present this to you. And thank you, Sister Norma, for reminding us how important dignity is.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.